Hi everyone, so I thought I'd do something a little bit different this week and show you what I do the day before it rains. It's Friday morning and I recorded this video this morning. It's about to rain and that's the perfect time to move plants. I've got cucumber here and I plant them in twos because you never know which seed is the stronger of the two. So I got the camera in slow motion here just so I can do all my talking in time for the video to happen. So I've got them coming up in twos, and some of the pairs, they both came up great, and some of the pairs only one came up, and they came up really poorly. And as I'm pointing right here, there's a spot in the garden where I planted my cucumbers. These are pickling cucumbers, where only one of the two cucumbers actually germinated, and it germinated very poorly. So I got nothing there, and I've got these two beautiful cucumbers right next to them. God, this is slow. Anyway, that's not good. And what I got to do is take those two cucumbers that are adjacent to that spot and remove one of them. So it's a perfect time to do that because it's about to rain, and I can move the plants and they can get readjusted, and they'll have a good 24-hour period with lots of moisture and not too much sun where they can adapt. And in this video I'll be doing a lot of that sort of thing. Just give an example of what I do in my garden when I think it's about to rain, or when I know it's about to rain. If you're straight seeding your plants, this is all different if you're transplanting, but I straight seed everything because I believe that despite the fact that people seem to think transplants give you a quick and dirty, easy, it's easier, it's faster, blah blah blah. In my experience, transplants really, I guess there is an element of convenience there, but in reality, when you put a transplant into your garden, it has to spend a good deal of time adapting to the soil conditions, adapting to the temperature conditions, and just getting used to the situation in your particular gardening space. And whatever advantage there is in sticking a mature plant in the ground, it's offset by the fact that the plant is really thrown by having to adapt to that new situation. And certain kinds of plants really don't like that, and I would say most, if not all, squashes or cucumbers, that sort of plant, they really don't like being moved. And yes, I'm moving them today, but it's a different sort of thing than having them in a in a cell pack or a transplant situation where they're pot bound and so on. When you're moving them like this, you've got them growing in the ground in one place, and you're going to scoop them up and move them to somewhere else. They don't mind it as much because you can get much more of the root ball, much more of the fine root hairs, and so on. There's me throwing away the really lousy cucumber that was in that spot. And so now what I'm going to do is show you how this soil is really loose, right? This soil has never been tilled, as I always say. It's just a garden bed made of horse manure, and I put about half an inch of chicken manure on it last fall. Now it's around first week of June. So I'm going to cut between these two cucumber plants. This is a variety of plant called I think Russian pickling cucumber that I got from Mackenzie Seed. Very happy with them. I germinated them under plastic about a month ago. You see how I'm moving a whole lot, right? And you're not going to get that kind of a root ball with a transplant. I can just pick the whole plant up and move it almost like it doesn't even know it's been moved, because I've taken not just the plant but so much of the soil around it that it's really not that thrown by being moved. So that's the process. In this garden I did a number of plants like that where I just moved them around and made use of the better, stronger looking plants and got rid of the plants that just didn't come in very well and looked kind of pathetic. Here's another spot. This is a garden of I've got a garden in another spot where I've got a whole bunch of broccoli growing. I think it's broccoli or Brussels sprouts, and there was too many there, so I moved them. This was a number of days ago, and because it was really sunny that day, but that was just the time I had to work on it, I put these spruce boughs over the plants so that they wouldn't get baked in the sun too bad. So here I am just taking off that the spruce boughs, and I just put them down to keep the sun off the plants so they wouldn't be too stressed in having been moved. Because these plants, unlike the squash, I couldn't get them out. They were planted a lot closer together from the place I moved them, and I couldn't get them out with a nice, perfect root ball where I could protect the fine root hairs. I kind of just yanked them out of the ground and jammed them back in this garden bed. So they were in a much more weakened state and much less able to adapt without any sort of stress. So here I am just so I put these here about 3 days ago, I guess, maybe 4, and I'm just picking off the lower leaves that seem to have really suffered as a result of the move. There's no point in demanding that the roots supply energy to those leaves. The plant has sacrificed those leaves in favor of the remaining leaves. So, I've given it a number of days to adapt, and any leaf that looks like it's not going to make it, there's no point in leaving it on the plant because it's just going to become pest food. Pests love leaves that have been weakened by whatever, so you don't want to do anything that's going to attract pests to a garden space. Now, just a closer look at them, not too bad. I mean, so these plants here are going to be set back a little bit relative to the plants from the garden that I took them from, but that's fine because that means I'll get different waves. And people talk about succession planting, but I feel if you plant everything all at the same time, but then when you're thinning you move things, you get the same effect. This is just showing a garden bed that a bit of a hodgepodge this episode today, a garden bed that I had mulched with seaweed, and just showing that yes, if you plant potatoes under seaweed, despite the fact that seaweed's really, really thick, maybe 4 inches thick, the potatoes will push right up through the seaweed. This is a bed of rhubarb. The rhubarb pushed through the seaweed. It was kelp, and this is all strawberries. I covered these in seaweed last November. They all pushed up through that seaweed, no problem. This is the bed that some of that broccoli came from in the last garden. Not broccoli, Brussels sprouts came from in the last garden. And I germinated these all under those low rows about a month and a half ago, I guess. And the kale here, this is Scotch curly kale, is quite thickly planted and needs to be thinned. And I could just thin them and eat them, or thin them and throw them away, or whatever. But I figured that some of these I could probably just pluck them out and put them somewhere else. So, because I've got about, in each of these rows, about at least 3, maybe even 4 times as many plants as the space can really handle properly. So, I plucked, a good 20 plants out of those. I had just 2 rows of Scotch curly kale. And I plucked a good 20 plants out and put them in other places in my garden. And so each one of those plants now has a nice space to grow in. And so by planting 2 rows of kale, I've got now a lot of kale. And I'm looking forward to having myself and my family. We all enjoy kale. We like to fry it up with bacon and garlic, believe it or not, and chili peppers. Anyway, just some more footage of me moving those around. The best time to do this sort of thing is when it's about to rain, because the plant isn't going to be under anywhere near the stress of if you moved it when it was sunny. So you're getting so much more out of your early plants. And again, these kale will be set back, by moving them. Because they were so closely planted together, I couldn't get them out neat and tidy where the root ball is perfectly protected. Alright, one more final thing. These are the radishes I was talking about on a couple podcasts ago. The Crimson Giant Champion. This one's about average size. I'm just holding it up next to a house key to give you a sense of scale. That's an average size one there. Really, really happy with them. Very sweet, very good. High water content, just very refreshing. Also, for those that don't know, you can eat the greens on radishes. Not everyone knows that. They're okay in a salad. I wouldn't want to make an entire salad of them. They're not the greatest green in the world, but certainly if you're doing cooked greens, you're going to cook up some spinach and some other early greens. Throw your radish greens in there, no problem at all. Their texture doesn't seem to indicate that because they have a sort of rough, almost prickly, thistle-like texture, but once you heat them up, the texture changes and they just become like any other green that you cook. Anyway, that's it for this week. I did the whole thing with a voiceover this week as opposed to just speaking live on the in the garden because the wind was incredible. With the storm brewing, you wouldn't have heard a word I said, or if you had, I would have been screaming at the top of my lungs, and it would have been very annoying to listen to. So hopefully people enjoy this content and it was useful, just the sort of thing we do when there's a good rain about to happen. That's a great time to move plants. A very good use of your time, a very efficient use of your time. Because otherwise, if you move plants, you got to water them all the time, and you got to cover them with things to help them adapt and so on. It's just an easy way to do it. So until next time, thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube, like us on Facebook, check my column out in Local Express, and until next time, get out there and get at it. Thanks for listening.